Judge Tate, introduce yourself, please, and tell us a little bit about your family background.
Thank you, Claude. Well, my name is Sam Tate, or Samuel Tate, and I was born here and bred here in Morganton. Well, in my early years, I lived in the old Tate house, which is now Morganton Federal, and that was about a year or two. Then we moved to what later became the Trotter House on Riverside Drive for a year or two. Then we moved into what was then called the Barry House on West Union Street, where Miller Sigmund and his family lived. And when I was 5 years old, my father had finished building the house right across the street from the Sigmund home, stone house. And that's where we moved in when I was 5.
Now that's the house. That's the house that's now located beside the First Baptist Church. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
The war, World War II, was getting underway and had been underway for a while, and I enlisted in the what was called the Enlisted Reserve Corps in October of 42. My Uncle Frank Thomason, mother's brother, drove me to Fort Bragg, said farewell, and that was the start of my military career. After I finished the second basic training course, I felt myself fairly well trained. Stayed on there as a cadreman, a corporal, acting corporal for some time, training the newcomers. And then I was shipped out in April of 43 to become what was known as a replacement. I was on the Normandy, the French ship, tremendous ship. I think there were 5,000 troops on board. And as I say, we landed, and I think I gave the wrong year. It was in 44 that we landed in England, in April 44. We, of course, didn't know exactly when D-Day was coming, but we knew it was coming. We embarked from Southampton, or at least I was in the group that embarked from Southampton in early June. It was about June the 5th or 6th. And on June the 13th, we had arrived off of what I later learned was Omaha Beach. And we went ashore in the little landing craft and then waited for the last quarter of a mile or so to the shore. Fortunately, this was on the 13th of June, and my birthday had been on the 10th of June when I turned 21. We waded ashore with our rifles and pack held over our heads. Fortunately, the beach had already been taken, so we were not met with enemy fire. But 2 weeks later, as we were marching forward, moving forward so much, several miles a day, we finally reached the stopping point for the night. Each night we would bed down and dig a slit trench, two-man slit trench usually, with two of us sitting facing each other in this slit trench as we slept through the night. Well, on this particular night, about 5 o'clock, I and a young man that I had just met that very day were sitting opposite each other in the slit trench when a German 88 millimeter shell came in over our heads, hit the tree that was over us, and exploded. and that put a piece of shrapnel through my right leg, high on the thigh, went completely through, missing the femoral artery, missing the bone, and
Still painful though. Very much.
not particularly painful at that point. I just felt a sudden hot thing in my leg or through my leg, and the same shell burst killed the man who was sitting with me in the slit trench. And the next thing I knew, a German soldier was standing over me with a gun pointed in my general direction, saying, auf, or whatever that would be in German. I got the general impression, and I stood up and climbed out. And he led me around. We were behind a hedgerow. Much later I learned that my squad, I was attached to a heavy weapons machine gun, 30 caliber water-cooled machine gun as at the ammunition barrel. I later learned that everybody else had withdrawn, but I didn't hear that word. All I heard was the explosion.
Right.
And the contact with the German soldier.
I guess there's a lot of noise and debris
Oh yeah,
and
there
smoke.
were shells falling all around.
Right.
And he conducted me down around the hedgerow, and I saw there was a little lane, dirt road, and in this road was a German tank. And standing on the tank, holding up his hand to be bandaged, was the officer who commanded the tank, and with a great smile on his face as he was enjoying the the battle, and holding his arm out to have it dressed, but enjoying the thrill of battle. And my captain marched me on around the tank and down another road for a total of about 4 miles. After about 2 miles, he saw that I was losing a lot of blood because it hadn't been bandaged. And there was a German platoon coming forward. He stopped the platoon and asked the medic attached to that platoon to bandage me up, which he did. The first thing that happened to me after liberation was to be given penicillin, which was just coming on.
A new thing, wasn't it?
Very new. It had just been invented and processed and made available. And so within a few days I was back in England for further recuperation, and as I completely recovered, I was back in training there in England. And in January I was headed back into France, and in France on New Year's Day of 44, I spent in Paris. That was a very happy New Year's Day, and exciting to see Paris for the first time. And by this time, my original outfit, which I don't believe I mentioned was the 90th Division, Texas-Oklahoma Division, they were up in Luxembourg. They had just gone through the Battle of the Bulge when I rejoined that outfit, and found that most of them had been replaced by other troops. There were a couple of the original two there. The sergeant who was head of the platoon that I was in was still there. And as I say, the Battle of the Bulge had just been completed, and we were in about 6 inches of snow, moving forward slowly. And although I heard lots of shelling going on, not in the very far distance. Didn't see any Germans, actually. And after about 10 days, my feet began to feel a little bit as though they needed a little rub down or something.
This wasn't a ringworm this time.
And it wasn't the ringworm, no, it was the cold. I thought I would go to the first aid station, get a rub down or something, and maybe warm up for a few hours and then come on back to duty. But when I got to the first aid station, they took a look at my feet and said, "Lie down over there." So I did. The next thing I knew, I was first by bus and then by train, heading back for the second time to England. What I had was frostbite.
Oh my.
And later I found out that one got a second Purple Heart for frostbite. Senator Sam Ervin, one time when he was introducing me for a short talk on my experiences, said, "You were the first soldier I ever knew who got decorated for cold feet." And